So in addition to the exciting immunotherapies, we've been talking about the antibodies and the T-cell enhancers. There's also some small molecules emerging, one of which we heard about at ASH, and I think we're going to hear about at the EHA meeting in a few weeks, is Selinexor. And Selinexor has a novel mechanism of action and some pretty interesting data. So Tom, maybe for the audience, summarize what we know about that.
Yeah, so Selinexor is really first-in-class selective inhibitor of nuclear export. And it basically inhibits a nuclear pore protein. And it keeps tumor suppressor proteins, the glucocorticoid receptor, and some mRNAs for oncoproteins in the nucleus. And it keeps the cells more regulated as normal function. It makes them more applicable to apoptosis and other anti-cancer effects. So this first-in-class has been used now together with dexamethasone in patients that have relapsed refractory myeloma. I think you just recently actually had a publication on this, looking at patients that were quad refractory and even penta-refractory. And this drug together with dexamethasone has actually a very nice response rate of 20%. And these are in patients similar to the CAR T that don't have many other options. I think the limitations with this drug at the current time are the toxicities associated with it. And mostly it's GI toxicity and fatigue. I don't know if you saw more toxicity, but as an agent, I think we just have to see what's going to happen in the future. I'm a little nervous about the toxicity and how well this is going to be utilized going
Pretty good
forward.
summary. I think the press release for the most recent update actually has about 25% response rate. But other thoughts, MD, on this side of the table?
Well, I think it was this study that defined the term penta-refractory. That just think of taking such a group of patients that are so heavily pretreated, and yet a quarter of those patients are responding to a single agent or an agent plus dexamethasone. So I think we can't discount this agent. I'm assuming that there will be adjustments to the drug, potentially to make it decrease toxicity, maybe next generation of these nuclear transport protein inhibitors. And then, of course, combining it with other agents holds a lot of promise.
And we'll talk about combinations in a minute. I mean, I must admit, we've struggled to manage the toxicity in some patients, and I do have some worries that that's going to be a limiting factor. I don't know, but last night when I was talking to some other physicians, they seem to have a much better experience, that a learning curve, if you will, that once you get used to using the drug, it becomes easier. Amrita, do you have much experience with this?
We haven't used the drugs.
So we've used it quite a bit, and I think the couple of issues are, number one, the patients. I mean, these are patients literally for whom many of them would have gone to hospice. So I think the expectations need to be commensurate with that setting. And in fact, some of these patients were progressing on DSEP, DT PACE, which are guaranteed to give you grade 3-4 heme toxicity. And so that's another toxicity part of it. So with that patient population, and you allowing patients with a neutrophil count of 1,000, a platelet count of 50 if their marrow was heavily replaced, and a clearance of only 20, these are really sick patients. And the fact that we're seeing these responses, I think we have to distinguish. The purpose of this kind of single-arm study is really to see if there's single-agent activity, which I think we've seen there is. But we have to distinguish that from what actually will happen in the real world. It's kind of like VMP. You know, VMP was a registrational study, but no one ever even used it. But you needed to do that study to get that approval, and people used the bortezomib.
What about combinations? I've heard that maybe they might allow us to lower the dose or even modify the toxicity a little bit.
Right, so the single agent is 80 milligrams twice weekly as a starting dose, but most of the combination studies with carfilzomib, with pomalidomide, with bortezomib are all being with 100 weekly. So I think we'll have to see how this looks.